Good evening, I'm Sandra Sully. Welcome to 10's Late News. Tonight, guilty. Jane Patel, the butcher of Bundaberg, convicted of killing and maiming patients.
All the patients that have suffered and have died at his hands, all the funerals that I've been to, I'm just so happy. I'm free. I'm free, yeah.
Dislodged, Kevin Rudd vacates the Prime Minister's official residence.
My last message to the Australian people from this residence is very simple.
Also tonight, the superannuation overhaul that could save you a fortune. Unlucky lotto, potential winners locked out of the $50 million jackpot. Going swimmingly, a brief look at Megan Gale's new bikini line. Plus Harry Potter, the final instalment.
Hi, I'm Adam Hawes. In sports tonight, Stephen Baker's big night at the AFL Tribunal. The Saint-Turned-Sinner tackles two of his charges. The Maroons veteran who's vowed to play on at Origin level.
We're very excited to be back.
And the Aussie interest ends at Wimbledon.
And it's one of the best forehands by Djokovic.
After a marathon trial, disgraced surgeon Jane Patel has been convicted of killing 3 patients and maiming another. Queensland's so-called butcher of Bundaberg now faces life in prison. He's been locked up tonight and will be sentenced on Thursday. 10 reporter Anthony Donaghy is outside the Brisbane Supreme Court. Anthony, what's the reaction of victims' families?
Jane Patel stood in the dock and, like he has done for every day of this 15-week trial, remained silent when all 4 guilty verdicts were read out. But there were very different scenes in Bundaberg, where the verdict was streamed live, the city where it all began. They ran into Bundaberg Court to hear the verdict, and with the word guilty, they erupted.
This is a message to dodgy doctors everywhere.
Patients, nurses and families of those Jane Patel killed and maimed have waited 5 years for justice. Outside the Brisbane court, they were in tears. Judy Kemp's husband was one of 3 patients Patel killed at Bundaberg Hospital.
I'm just so happy. I'm free. I'm free, yeah.
Ian Vale survived a botched bowel operation.
I'd just like to ask him why he done it, when there was no need to, sort of thing, you know. It's like he's buggered up my life for no reason.
Patel never spoke during the 15-week trial. Tonight was no different.
How do you feel the trial was run?
The jury took 7 days to reach a verdict.
So it's not been about revenge, it's been about justice. Hundreds of people were affected, and this was about justice and making sure this can never happen in our history again. It was about all the patients that have suffered and have died at his hands, all the funerals that I've been to.
Former nurse Tony Hoffman was the one who blew the whistle on Patel.
Disbelief, really, and just so grateful that in Australia we can still have justice. This is a huge victory for patient safety, for patient advocacy and for standing up and speaking out for what's right.
Patel's wife remained stoic and walked out of court after the verdict.
Mrs. Patel, how do you feel about the verdict?
Her 60-year-old husband is tonight in jail. He'll be sentenced on Thursday morning, but his lawyers are expected to appeal. Anthony Donaghy, 10 News.
Kevin Rudd has left the lodge for good, arriving back home in Brisbane tonight. His departure comes as the opposition predicts the timing of the federal election, while Julia Gillard has set the record straight about God.
The man who entered the lodge with thunderous applause has exited in a very different fashion. Flanked by his wife and daughter, Kevin Rudd left the place he's called home for almost 3 years.
All I'd say to the Australian people is one word, and that is thank you for the opportunity to serve Australia.
The dumped PM headed to Canberra Airport. There was no private jet. Kevin 07 flies commercial these days. He's now back in Brisbane and says the next flight he takes will be to a distant beach, away from the media.
Good to be back home in Queensland. And it's good to be back home at our house.
So for now, the lodge has no tenants and we don't know when there will be any. Julia Gillard maintains she won't be moving in until after the election. And that's, of course, if she wins. Most political commentators are tipping we'll head to the polls on August 28. But there is a growing number of people who think it could be sooner.
I expect the election to be called this weekend.
This weekend?
I would suspect this weekend or the following weekend at the latest.
Labor must first make amends with the miners on the super profit tax before it calls an election to avoid a brutal campaign lashing from the resources sector. Word is a deal will be done by the end of the week.
The sooner it's resolved, the better.